Hi, we are Abacus Solutions, and we're presenting our automated testing framework. Next slide. And this is our team.
Hi, my name is Daniel Gomez, and I'm pursuing a computer science degree.
Hello, my name is Nidal Lopez, and I am also pursuing a computer science degree.
My name is Jesus Perez. I'm pursuing computer science.
Hi, my name is Omar Solis, and I'm also pursuing a computer science degree.
And my name is Carson Ship, and I'm also pursuing a degree in computer science. Next slide. So what is Abacus? Abacus is a web app that provides a dashboard for parents with children with autism to store, visualize, and manage data. The specific data being stored with Abacus is called ABA, or Applied Behavioral Analysis Data. ABA is a type of behavioral therapy for children with autism. The dashboard features include being able to enter new session plans in mere minutes, setting targets and tracking entered data against those targets, graphically visualizing session data up to the minute. The customers primarily are the parents of children with autism or the board certified behavior analysts, or BCBAs, that work with those parents. Oftentimes the customers are both parties working together for the benefit of the child. Next slide.
All right, so our project description and motivation. So our sponsor ended up splitting our Capstone project into two phases. Phase one being that we needed to build the UI automated testing framework. And phase two is to continue developing the testing framework with adding complex test cases and fully automating the testing suite. So what we had to do is we had to create and set our baseline requirements before we got started. We had to investigate and research what would be the best end-to-end automated testing tool that we could use for our sponsor's web application, Abacus. We needed to ensure that the tool that we selected was also compatible with the application, which runs on Ruby on Rails using a Postgres database with some JavaScript and jQuery supporting the front end. We also needed to make sure that we set up our source control, which is very critical. We went with Bitbucket, which our sponsor was already using. This was critical for the team in order to facilitate collaboration and accelerate release velocity. Additionally, we needed to ensure that we all agreed on what required information needed to be included in our testing cases, such as test steps, test data, preconditions, and any post conditions. And the motivation that we had for this project is Abacus Solutions was completing their UI testing suite manually. So we wanted to make sure that we would create a thorough testing suite to quickly detect bugs, improve testing accuracy, and increase and improve test coverage. So to briefly cover the phase two, which we will be focusing on in the next semester with our sponsor, is we want to continue developing and complete the testing framework with complex use cases. We are considering designing with parallelization with continuous integration. And the reason for that is that as the testing suite grows and contains a large number of tests, it could take a longer time for the testing to complete as it runs in a sequence on one machine. So running tests in parallel across many virtual machines can save our team money and time when running tests in continuous integration. This is a discussion that we will be having with our sponsor next semester to further investigate what would be the best approach as we aim to complete the testing suite, and we would also be keeping execution in mind. And on top of that, we will also be improving our documentation to make sure that any decisions that we make as a team, Abacus can use that documentation for training purposes or to review any improvements that they may want to make down the road.
Our requirements for the project for the end of the semester was to do the following. We would have to use a working branch from Bitbucket with frequent commits. We'd have to have an agreement on what was the definition of done, complete the set of test cases that was provided by our sponsor, complete the setup of our local host of a development space, document Cypress setup and basic functionality. Next slide.
The technologies used, the code base is written in Ruby. Rails is used for the backend, working with the relational database in PostgreSQL. We use Git for version control. Cypress is our automated testing framework. And then the actual code with Cypress is written in JavaScript and with Node.js supporting that. Next slide.
So one of the main objectives that was given to us by our sponsor was deciding on a testing automation service. We were between Selenium and Cypress. However, given the short semester that we had, um, we decided that simplicity was a key to get our test cases up and running and finish our deliverables in time. Cypress is a lot more intuitive with good documentation and has a great UI for us to continue to build upon for our test cases. Most importantly, Cypress captures snapshots of the time of executing a test, which allows QAs or developers to hover over a certain command and see what exactly is happening at a certain step, something that wasn't given with Selenium. So we did find that to be a lot more useful and a lot more convenient. So we decided to use Cypress. Next slide. One of the results was, since before, as testing was completed manually, it was very time consuming, could take hours, depending on the depth of the testing needed. And in certain cases, a bug was not necessarily found at, at a specific point in time. So what we did is, once we started creating test cases here with Cypress, as you can see on the left-hand side, Cypress is very detailed with the logs of each step that it goes through as it completes a certain step. This was crucial for us as we were creating test cases, so we can see a high level detail of the tests that were being completed from start to end. Next slide. Here you can see a complete example of a Cypress test case. So as here, as you can see on the left-hand side, it is going through each step, showing us what it does at each specific step and the outcome here on the right-hand side with the actual application interface. You can drill down in each one of these areas to see more details and highlight the areas that are being affected, the buttons that are being clicked, scrolls, anything of the sort, which was very helpful in our case. Next slide.
This is just a screenshot of some of the code we wrote. This is for one of our test cases. Again, it's written in JavaScript, but you have Cypress installed in your working directory, so you can use those commands. You prepend most of your code with cy side dot. And then, for instance, if you wanted to click on a button, you would find the tag in the HTML for that button, find the selector for it, and then you would side.get and then click on it. So it's pretty intuitive as far as that goes. Next slide. And then this is a screenshot from running one of the tests, or running that same test on the actual website. So you can see the Abacus web app there on the right. And then on the left is the thing that we just saw with Omar, the execution log of each of those steps going through. And then, yeah, the right side is just showing each of those steps as it's going in real time. Next slide.
What we created, it was a documentation on how to set up the testing environment on Mac OS, and also the installation of Node and Cypress on Mac. We also created a testing environment while choosing for Cypress as the automated test framework for the future use. And we automated the unit testing. Next slide.
Some lessons learned throughout the project include setting realistic goals that our team was able to make progress on and present to each other. Also working together and getting comfortable asking for help, whether it be from our team members or our sponsor, using services like Zoom and Discord and Slack. All of us had practice of setting up a full stack on our local machine, allowing us to run the Abacus application and tackling the trials that came with that setup. We were introduced to UI unit testing practices that we were able to implement in our designs of test cases using Cypress. Next slide. Future plans for phase 2 include diving deeper into the application and creating more in-depth test cases. Cypress is still new to the team, so we plan on becoming more efficient in our code and documentation. Failed test cases were introduced late in phase 1, and we still plan on expanding on those and practice communicating better. Next slide.